Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. Freemasonry, lodges on every corner, other secret societies, the Illuminati, Rosicrucians, Club of Rome, Bilderberger Group, Council of Foreign Relations. I could go on for a while. So the human face on secret societies. What's behind the human face? Apparently beings from the invisible reality, another dimension maybe, another galaxy, another solar system. We don't know. They don't tell us. So I read books, make videos, and try to figure it out. Upon consolidating my videos, after almost 4 years of doing this series up to video series number 149, when I started this program, each book or each video I did, I gave a series number 2. But later on, I thought, well, why don't I combine certain authors or similar videos under one series, which left some holes. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 would be missing, and I would have to fill it in. And in this case, the reason for this conversation, it's number 16. When I consolidated and reorganized, because when I started this series, I didn't realize I would go this far or where it was going. Can you imagine after 4 years and making book reviews and continuing to research, you can't help but grow a little bit, learn more, see more, even adjust what you think and what you believe. So when I fill in these holes in the series, I have to go back and books that I read back then that I didn't make videos on because I was reading books for almost 10 years before I started making videos, and quite intensively. I was really focused every day, every week, every year, every month since 2005. And here we are now, August 2017. And the eclipse was yesterday. And there was gloom and doom on certain videos and websites. And apparently September 23rd is supposed to be a new end of the world date of the pole shift, planet Nibiru. You're going to be able to see it when you walk out in your backyard. Look up, there it is. Blindsided. I haven't made a video on this book yet. But today, I read this book a long time ago. And as interesting as it is, I've been to the city of Roswell. Went to the Roswell UFO Alien Museum. It was a very interesting trip when I was spending some time in Santa Fe. I did the Hopi Reservation, the Grand Canyon, Albuquerque, Flagstaff, Roswell, even up there towards the north, I forget the name of that place, Dulce, the underground bases. I was near that on my way to the Rocky Mountains in that area. And then, of course, the first nuclear research facility, I went there, drove through that town. Sometimes it takes a moment for the name to pop in my mind. But I had a radiation meter sitting on the seat next to me in my truck. And when I entered that town, where they invented the first nuclear bomb, the thing went red. And until I got a mile or two out of that town, it stayed red. So I think there was a lot of electromagnetic radiation or surveillance systems everywhere. Quite bizarre. So I put a little time into the research into UFOs and aliens, and I've made numerous videos already. And again, this is one I'm filling in one of the holes of a book I read. The former Pentagon official reveals the U.S. cover-ups, the U.S. government, shocking UFO cover-up the day after Roswell. Col Philip J Corso retired. So I read this stuff. I try to figure it out. Like I said, if you go look at my list of videos I've already made up to series 149, you'll find out that I've done a lot of videos on different UFO books and aliens, and I'm looking into this topic quite thoroughly. Here's just a bookshelf right here. I haven't made videos on these books yet. And I have, you can pause your computer and see the titles. I have made videos on all these books. These are the books starting where my finger is up here. Number 1. Actually, number 1 would be up here. 49 here. About 100, 150, almost 200. This is series 149 right here where my finger is. So these books I've already made videos on. These are some of my UFO books that I have not made videos on. I have another bookcase, about the same size, full of UFO books, whether it's in bookcase or in boxes. So this ought to be interesting, but just to show you a little bit of what I've been doing, I made up this big chart of UFO authors of books. And I am working to get it finished. Here I have another chart of channelers channeling material, which I'm continuing to make videos on. So between the UFOs and aliens and the authors and the channelers and the apparently alien beings that they are channeling, I'm beginning to connect the dots to see that the channeled information from like the Palladians or Greys is associated with the UFOs and aliens, which is also stuff mentioned in the related to the Bible, ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, all that stuff. Sumerian tablets, Zechariah Stitchins, Planet X, Nibiru, and all that is the backbone of the secret societies, Illuminati, Satanist groups, reptilians, like I said, Palladians, angelic beings, archons, watchers, demons, Nephilim, angels, fallen angels. So some of these things here, I got Dr. Carla Turner, Family Terrorized, 1988-89, Gray Aliens, Insectoids, Reptoids, Illuminati, New World Order, wrote the book Into the Fringe, another book taken, Masquerade of Angels, Billy Edward Meyer, chosen by the Palladians at the age of 7 to be educated, and Sephat was his first mentor, then Ashkat at the age of 16. Like I said, I've really taken some time. You got Dr. Stephen Greer, the government and black projects, manufacturing alien craft technologies, Stuart Swervelow, Project Montauk, Preston Nichols, 13, 14 years old, observed tall reptilian aliens, Stuart Swervelow, mind control, time portals, all this stuff that I'm investigating under the series Freemasonry and Satanism. So as you can see, I take it quite serious. Trying to put it all together and come up to a conclusion. What am I to think? Here's some of the pictures on the back of this book. Newspaper pictures of the Roswell incident. There's Philip Corso. So these books I do videos on and read. You can go find them and buy them. I'm not trying to do an audio book. But I will read from a little bit from the book and throw in my 2 cents from all of that research you just saw, plus the many books on my bookcase that I've already read and made videos on. You can find that list on my website, rickmiracle.com. Look on the top left side, books on YouTube videos, cut and paste yourself a list of 149 in my series. So I thought I'd read about, in this book, Chapter 8, page 104. And as you know, I highlight material. I don't read everything. And then I like to have a conversation, things I know, things I read, maybe things I think I know. I'm not finished formulating an opinion. I was reading this book for the last couple days, and it continued to occur to me, is the government lying? Who is this Philip Corso? What did they do? Is it all a hoax? Project Bluebeam? Fake alien invasion? What's it got to do with the New World Order, the Illuminati, the Zionist, Jewish utopia, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, banksters, all this inciting hatred with different kinds of groups all over the country, putting it front page in the newspaper, TV, the radio, stirring up hatred in our society, trying to bring about a planetary new world order with lots of chaos and anarchy and destruction. What's it got to do with this? If these aliens are real, a galactic federation, council of worlds, and all these technologies that they've acquired, why isn't things getting better? Conversely, why are things getting worse? Seems like all these technologies they have obtained, they've weaponized. Look at 911. Judy Woods tells all in her book, and so do so many others. What kind of technology do they have now? Now they're pulling out the 5G network. I think 3 megahertz to 3 gigahertz radio waves, micro radio waves, for a complete electronic system spectrum covering everything from your smart meter to your car, your cell phone, wireless, everything, permeating even our bodies with frequencies that can literally cook your cells in your body. They've weaponized some of this technology, if they got it from where they say they got it from. Even with Nikola Tesla bringing us AC electricity or wireless radio waves and so much more, they've weaponized his technology. And who controls our planet? Apparently the secret societies, New World Order, Illuminati, and high-level Freemasons and other secret societies, Theosophist Society, Kabbalist, mysticism, Zionism, Bolshevik Jewish people. I could go on and on. Witchcraft. Apparently with some kind of god deity named Lucifer. And even in Aleister Crowley's book, the Book of the Law, series number 23 I made, he draws pictures of Lamb and Aiwass, some beings they call masters, that he was talking to. It looks like gray aliens, and it's definitely satanic. Reptilian, Illuminati, Lucifer. Is all this one and the same? Do we have fallen angels from the invisible reality, heaven, maybe from Hades down below, permeating our society, trying to bring about destruction on earth, as per what's said in the Bible? Look at Zechariah Stitchins bringing us planet Nibiru, dark star. As I mentioned in previous videos recently, series number 139, John White wrote the book Pole Shift in 1980. And then I did the video 142 in my series, The Secret Doctrine by Helena Blavatsky, Volume 2, which I didn't have. We've been going over Volume 1. So one of it was about the creation of reality, and the other one is about anthropogenesis, the creation of mankind and material matter. And in her book in 1888, she was talking about a pole shift and a destruction. So all this fear propaganda has been going on since, from what I see, easily 1988. And if Zechariah Stitchins correctly interpreted the Sumerian tablets, all this propaganda or information, true or not, it's been going on for thousands of years. What the poles used to be, even scientists are saying it. So again, I have to wonder, is it part of the evil forces, satanic Luciferic forces, trying to bring about a new world order and a new age, depopulating the planet, which apparently they were talking about that in the 17 and 1800s, from the Illuminati secret society groups, high-level Freemasons, the Kabbalists. So these people who want to dominate the world have been talking about depopulation for 300 years or more, and bringing us wars and murder and theft. So what can you believe? Who can you trust? So let me read from this book after that opening. The project gets underway. So apparently, according to this book, seeing that I'm starting here with chapter 8, the Roswell crash, or maybe two craft UFOs, but most of us just think of the one. And when it did crash into the field, all this aluminum foil type material was scattered everywhere. So apparently the hull of the ship was paper thin. And if you crinkled it and let loose, it would go right back to its original shape. And apparently the craft didn't have any fuel storage, any motors, not even physical controls. And the bodies inside were those little gray aliens, if the story is true. I've got all these books. I've got a lot of research to do in this particular topic. And I've been doing videos on just about everything under the sun, from New World Order conspiracies, the Illuminati, the Jewish Kabbalah, the Jewish Bolsheviks, the Jewish Zionists trying to take over the world, Jewish Utopia, Freemasons, Council of Foreign Relation, Pole Shift, and many other conspiracy theory authors, David Icke, Lost Star, I'm looking at my bookcase here. Eric von Daniken, Gold from the Gods. William Cooper, Behold a Pale Horse. Rabbi Marvin Anthelman. Anyways, go look at my list. So many more. Invisible Horizons, Magic Eyes, Helena Blavatsky, Albert Pike, Morals and Dogma. Germany Must Perish, a book written before World War II, where the Jews were calling for the death of every single man, woman, and child with any German DNA. The Occult, the Encyclopedia of the Occult Theocracy, Forbidden Science, Rules of Secrecy, Crossfire about President John Kennedy's assassination, 13th Tribe about the Khazars turning the whole country into religion of the Jewish people in the 1,000 years ago, which are called the Akhenazi Jews, who are apparently the opponents of the Shepherditic Jewish people, which are the good Jewish people who want to get along with the rest of us. So what's it all have to do with aliens and UFOs? I believe everything. So I make these videos and just go on and on and on. So anyways, starting with chapter 8, the project gets underway. General Trudeau said to Phil Corso, the author of this book, "This is a hell of a report." I'm skipping stuff. So, the Roswell file in front of him has a bunch of drawers full of stuff that people would put me away for. We both knew that it contained much of the future of our research and development R&D. So him and the general are talking about some of the technologies or pieces of stuff they found on the craft, including the alien beings themselves. And they say they have a bunch of stuff that they would be put away for, I suppose, if the powers that be found out they had it. Military research and development agencies were under growing pressure from the Congress to put some success points on the scoreboard or get out of the rocket launching business for good. So apparently, if it's true, a UFO crashed. The debris was all over the fields. They covered it up, and apparently there was an alien or two, dead bodies. I'm not sure if, in this case, anybody survived. I did read this book a long time ago. I don't remember everything, so I've been rereading it again. Moving on to my highlighted portion. I explained that I wanted to compile a list of all of our technical human resources, like the rocket scientists from Germany, then still working at Alamogordo and White Sands. So there was a project called Project Paperclip, and after World War II, Russia, Britain, the United States, etc., were scurrying all over Germany trying to find these scientists who were working for the Hitler regime, and they were bringing them back to the United States. The Russians got some, the Britons got some, maybe France got some, and they were opening up all these secret laboratories without telling we the people. They were taking these German scientists from the Nazi regime and employing them secretly in the USA under black operations projects, creating lots of things they didn't tell us about, and apparently using all those technologies, much of it, against we the people, weaponizing this stuff. That doesn't sound too good. That's my conclusion. But we were working with theoretical scientists as well. So they had all these scientists from World War II from Germany, and they had theoretical scientists as well. Men with experience who could combine the cold precision of an engineer with the speculative vision of a free thinker. These were the people I wanted to assemble into a brain trust, people I could talk to about strange artifacts and devices that had no basis in earthly reality. They were the scientists who could tell me what the potential was in items like wafer-shaped plywood-thin pieces of silicon with mysterious silver etchings on them. So that sounds like silicon chips, electronics. And General Trudeau asked, and once you have this brain trust, then what? Match them with technologies, I said. I admitted that we were flying blind on much of the material that we had. We couldn't go out to the general scientific and academic communities to ask them what we had because we would very quickly lose control of our own secrets. So why does our government have all these secrets they have to keep from the rest of we the people? That's concerning, especially when they're weaponizing all these technologies. Even at Jade Helm 15 in 2015, with all those military exercises all over the USA, they were using and testing computer software programs that would be making decisions in future events in America, probably the world, warfare, where computers would make a decision who lives and dies, who would be an obedient servant and who would be a threat, a free thinker, not mind controlled. So it wouldn't be a human making that decision. So they're testing this stuff. Then they're bringing us the 5G network, where there's a lot of fear media out there, whether it's YouTube videos or alternate websites, press releases, essays. Look into it. But apparently the frequencies are real small, 3 or 4 gigahertz or more, the size of a cell in your body. And if you know anything about an electromagnetic wave, just like a dish that's this big, when you had dish TV, it's because the wave sent by the satellite was this long, one wave. Or a harmonic of it, 2 waves that fit exactly in that dish. So it's the size of the dish has to be matched with the wave. And if you think of something like one of your cells in your body, and then you think of a wave that size, and if it matches, it resonates back and forth like a string on a guitar, like eh, and that would heat up your cell and cook you. Clear enough? Look into this. We are bathed in electromagnetic radiations more and more every day, and they're bringing out the 5G network, which a lot of people are saying they shouldn't do. It's very threatening to humanity on Earth, as if they're not already propagating enough of those energies and mind controlling, putting thoughts in people's heads, and all kinds of black projects going on. MK Ultra, Project Montauk, lots of research, Project Bluebeam, Project Paperclip, bringing them German scientists over here. Weren't they supposed to be criminals? Shouldn't they have gone to prison? Then they use those things to weaponize the United States, threatening the rest of the world, and the rest of the world, even like China, developing nuclear weapons, and even Israel now has them, and something called the Samson option. If anybody tries to stop their aspirations for a Jewish utopia, they push the button and take all the world's major cities down in a flaming inferno. How biblical is that? And don't believe me, please go look it up. All right, back to the book. And once you have this brain trust, General Trudeau asked, then what? Match them up with technologies, I said. I admitted that we were flying blind on much of the material we had. We couldn't get out to the general scientific and academic communities to ask them what we had because we would very quickly lose control of our own secrets. Besides, page 105 here. a lot of it had to do with weaponry. And there were very strict rules on what we could and could not disclose without the appropriate clearances. But our brain trust would be invaluable. And with the proper orientation and security checks, they would keep our secrets just as they had since the end of World War II. So a lot of kept secrets since the end of World War II. Look what's happened since. Think about that. 1948, 46, 47. Then in 1960s, CIA, FBI, other organizations, secret societies were bringing heroin and other kinds of drugs into the USA with their secret societies and all these organizations creating the hippie movement, drugs, destroying religions and all that, destroying the world as the way we know it. And over in Europe, it was called the Festival Movement. And there's books, I've gone over it. We'll be going over more books on these topics. But all that stuff was intentional. They were writing books on depopulating the planet, the threat of sustainability, even peak oil, all kinds of threats, global warming, terrorism. Why? Did they see something in the future? Do they feel they no longer need humanity on the planet, as many of us, with all these technologies? Lots of questions. All right, back to the book and our conversation about the Roswell crash. What do they do with all those artifacts if they were real? And the aliens and the dead bodies. What were they thinking? All right, so General Trudeau asked, which of the scientists do you have in mind? Col Philip Corso says, I was thinking of Robert Sarbacher. I said, Werner von Braun, of course, Hans Kohler, Hermann Oberth, John von Neumann, a lot of German scientists. Isn't that strange? Project Paperclip, look it up. Did Nazism die? Or have they taken over the USA and the world? Who financed the Nazis? Who are the Khazars today? The Ashkenazi Jews. Who are the Illuminati? Plenty of evidence out there that they're into some Luciferianism, which, by the way, thank you very much for some of the information some of you out there have sent me. And 2 new books I need to acquire, although I was fortunate enough to find them free online in PDF format, but they certainly are filling in the blanks. So to the commenters out there, people who regularly send me comments and I comment back, The Cause of World Unrest, Howard Arthur Gwynne. You can go look it up. But it talks about the British government assigning Sir Edward Carson as Viceroy of... Actually, that's not the person. They assigned a well-known Jewish person to be the liaison, the ambassador for Palestine when they were preparing to make room for the creation of the State of Israel. All right, continuing on. Had some guys working outside with the blowers, getting rid of the grass they had just cut, creating too much noise by my window. So anyways, people sent me these information about these books. The Cause of World Unrest, Howell Author Gwen. Just want to read you this. I've got to make videos on these books. Read them. It's amazing. Who's in charge of our world today? The question which every reader of this book will want to have answered is whether there is a Jewish peril. So is there a threat to the world by the Jewish people? And if so, what are its ramifications? And apparently these Illuminati, Zionists, Bolshevik, capitalists, in controlling the liberals, the communists, they control everything. Want to bring us a new age and a new world order. That there is a Jewish peril, this author says, back in the 1920s. I have no sort of doubt, but we must guard ourselves against generalizations. It is easy to prove that a certain section of the Jews in the world are engaged in a mighty attempt to destroy the established rule in many countries and to bring this world into communistic brotherhood. The cause of world unrest. So what I'm saying, if these people into these cults, Illuminati organizations, secret societies, are in communication with some kind of beings from another world, call them aliens, call them demons, whatever, reptilians, Palladians, and they have control of all these technologies and the banking system and everything else, and they're creating all these technologies for surveillance, population control, warfare. Another book somebody sent me to look at. William Carr, Pawns in a Game. Again, who's behind the scenes controlling our world? Who brought us World War I, World War II? Who are the people in charge of all these technologies and in communication with aliens and other types of beings? Is that concerning? In 1840, General Albert Pike, that was a general for the South in the war between the North and the South in the United States, the Civil War, was brought under the influence of Mazzini because he became a disgruntled officer when President Jefferson Davis disbanded his auxiliary Indian troops on the grounds they had committed atrocities under the cloak of legitimate warfare. So he wasn't a humane soldier, maybe? Listen to what happens next. Pike accepted the idea of a one-world government and ultimately became the head of the Luciferian priesthood. So this is supposed to be quite a famous book. I looked into it. William Carr, C-A-R-R, Pawns in the Game. So you can see I have a lot more material to read and put in the collection of facts in my head and on my bookshelves. But it seems to continue to connect the dots that we do have some evil, malevolent, sinister forces controlling our world and planning for a very bad day for humanity, including some kind of calamity, catastrophe, nuclear war, I don't know, biological plague, or have all the Democrats armed and slaughter the liberals, and Democrats armed and slaughter the Republicans, or the Republicans armed and slaughter the Democrats, the whites killing the blacks killing the whites, Americans killing Chinese. I don't know, Russians. But we see there's a lot of insanity in the news. Who's in charge? What's it got to do with stuff like this? Can you talk about both things or five things at once? Can you assume that everything is connected? I assume everything is connected. We're living in one world, albeit some people are twisting it and turning it bringing about something like a twilight zone. And I'd mentioned that to other people, and they go, Rick, you're right. It's like the twilight zone. All right, so General Trudeau asked the question, how much do they know about Roswell? If they'd been counted on the Roswell material back in 1947, if they'd been consulted on the Roswell material back in 1947, as I knew Werner von Braun had been by General Twining, then we weren't revealing any secrets. So they were worried about informing the scientists of what they had discovered, alien beings, plus the crashed craft, all the debris. But apparently, since the end of World War II, they had already involved some of these scientists. Again, what do they know that we don't know? If they had never been informed about the crash, then we were going out on a limb by sharing information that was still classified above top secret. General Trudeau needed to know how dangerous it was to bring these scientists into the loop. But Colonel Corso says, I assured him that all of them knew something about Roswell because of their connection with the Research and Development Board. During the Eisenhower administration, information about the classified research and data collection projects into extraterrestrials was routinely filtered to the Office of Research and Development because of the head of the Research and Development Board had been one of the original members of the group. So when you go back to the Eisenhower presidency, I think we find out that Prescott Bush was also involved and was one of the lead men sent on to investigate some of the information about UFOs and aliens. So you can see how the Bush family was connected there. There's a lot we don't know. I've got a lot of books to read and share more material. But I'm able to connect the dots in my mind a little bit now. I was at the White House when Sarbacher was on the board, General, I told my boss, so I can be pretty sure he was in the know. And Herman Oberth, I admitted to Trudeau, he already told me that he believed that the objects we saw popping up on our radar screens at Red Canyon and then disappearing as if they were never there were probably the same kind of extraterrestrial aircraft that we picked up at Roswell. So what can we believe? Should we believe Colonel Corso? Phil, of having to explain to any higher-ups why you decided to release top-secret information to people without clearances, even in the interest of national security. So they were worried about sharing information with people who might leak it to the public. So it says in this book. Anyways, I appreciate that, but for our plan to work, we needed the technical and scientific expertise. People like von Braun, Oberth, Sarbacher could bring to any reverse engineering and product development strategies. My cell phone rang. I had to go answer it. All right, so let's talk about this. The crescent-shaped space vehicle also had no traditional navigational controls as we understand them. There were no control sticks, wheels, throttles, pedals, cables, flaps, or rudders. How did the creature pilot this ship, and how did they control the speed? Accelerating from near stationary hover above a given spot like a helicopter to speeds in excess of 7,000 miles per hour in a matter of seconds. What protected the creatures from the tremendous G-forces that would have had to have pull in any conventional aircraft. Sometimes when you're reading somebody else's sentences, they don't go with the way your brain thinks. So pardon me. What protected the creatures from their tremendous G-forces they would have had to have pulled in any conventional aircraft? But we found nothing in the flight suits of the creatures that indicated that they faced the same problem. Yet their craft should have pulled 10 times the G-forces our own pilots did, so we couldn't figure out how they managed this. So the way they theorized, I'm skipping some material here, is the craft itself was an electrical circuit, that the flight suits, flight skins, is a better description. The creatures wore were made of a substance whose atomic structure was elongated, strengthened lengthwise, so as to provide a directional flow to any current applied to it. So their own suits they wore apparently had some kind of current flow, electricity. The engineers who first discovered this were amazed at the pure conductivity of these skins. Functionally like the skin of the craft itself, their obvious ability to protect the wearer, while at the same time vectoring some kind of electronic field. Where was the physical junction of the circuit between the pilot and the ship? Was it turned on or off somehow by the pilot himself through a switch we don't know about? Alongside the riddle of the apparent absence of navigational controls, I listed the sensorized headband that so intrigued the officers at Roswell Walker Field and fascinated me as well. So apparently these entities looking like gray aliens had some kind of headband that picked up, I guess, their thoughts that could control things. If, as we all suspected, this device picked up the electrical signatures from the creatures' oversized brains, what did it do with them? I believe in our industrial product development from the 1960s through today, as the brainwave-controlled helmets finally came into service, ultimately confirmed. So they're into these kinds of technological researches. How to get the mind to control things without throttles or buttons, just thinking stuff. And of course the reverse is, can they make people think stuff that they wouldn't normally think? People would think it's their own thoughts when it weren't. That these headbands translated the brain's electronic signals into system commands that controlled speed, direction, and elevation. Maybe the headbands had to be calibrated or tuned to each individual pilot, or maybe the pilots, since I believe they were genetically engineered beings, biologically manufactured especially for flight or long-term exploration, had to be calibrated to the headband. Either way, the headbands were the interface between the pilot and the ship. But that still didn't resolve the question of the lack of cables, gears, and wires. And they are doing genetic engineering with humans today, and they've been doing those kinds of researches for quite a while. Trying to create some kind of superhumans, in particular, I think, for warfare. Even giants, huge people. You got to wonder what kind of entities control our planet. What do they have planned for us? And I'm not creating these ideas. You can go on the internet and find them. A lot of stuff out there. Maybe the answer lie not in the lack of structural controls, but in the way the suit, the headband, the creature's brains and the entire craft worked together. In other words, when I looked at the possible function of the entire system, the synchronicity between the brain interface and the headband, the pure conductivity of the spacecraft, and the elongated structure of the space skins, which also acted like a circuit. So what do you think? Is this plausible? Is it all fake for public consumption? Why did Col Philip Corso write all this in a book? Where was his heart at? Or was he on a mission? Again, propaganda. Some kind of deception. Destruction of religion. I could see how directional instructions could have been translated by the headbands into some form of current flowing through the skins into a series of raised deck panels where there were indentations for the creature's hands. So apparently there was some kind of control panel that you stuck your hand into with the handprint indentation. Wasn't that in the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie with Total Recall? The indentations of these panels, as the Roswell field reports described them, looked like the handprints pressed into the concrete at old Grumman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood. We've all seen the sidewalks with the handprints of movie stars. Were the directional commands a series of electronic instructions transmitted directly from the creature's brain along their bodies through the panels into the ship itself, as if the ship were only an extension of the creature's body? So did they have some kind of way of connecting to the entire ship? So it was virtually part of their whole body. I did go over some material about remote viewing on how you go from one location to another, whether it was David Morehouse or Tim Rifat. We'll be going over those materials again. But they did something called projection when they left their bodies. So were these creatures real humans or some kind of robot body for somebody else's spiritual entity? Just saying. That's why I read all these different books on all these different topics. I try to put two and two together. Do these creatures have souls? For that to have been the case, something was still missing. The engine. Again, I settled on the idea of function over structure. The debris in the spacecraft indicated that an engine didn't somehow fall out of the craft when it crashed. A conventional engine was never there in the first place. What we found was that the craft seemed to have had the ability to store as well as conduct a vast amount of current. What if the craft itself were the engine, imparted with a steady current from another source, that it stored as if it were a giant capacitor? This would be like charging the battery of an electric car and running it until the battery was drained. Makes you wonder, how does this stuff work? What did they find? All right, back to the book. So Col Corso says, I suspected the Roswell craft was simply a capacitor that stored current that was controlled or vectored by the pilot and was able to be recharged in some way, or could be recharged itself with some form of built-in generator. All right, as early as September 1947, scientists who had gone to the Air Material Command at Wright Field to see the debris were speculating that the electronic potential of the Roswell craft reminded them of the German and British anti-gravity experiments of the 1920s and 1930s. General Twining was reported to have said more than once that the name of the Serbian electrical engineer and inventor of alternating current, Nikola Tesla, kept bubbling up in the conversation because the scientist examining the damaged craft described the way it must have converted an electromagnetic field into an anti-gravity field. Well, that's an interesting conversation. As I've said before, for the last couple thousand years, technology was kind of like this. And then suddenly you get into the Industrial Revolution. It goes up a little bit. Then along comes Tesla and some other people into electronics and electricity and magnetics. And in less than 100 years, right off the chart. Now, remembering the old adage, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Or the other one, you can't put the horse in front of the cart or behind the cart. How's that go? Can't put the cart in front of the horse. So there's a logic to things. So I'm thinking about these technologies they're using now to apparently control humanity and destroy humanity with a couple of nuclear bombs. And channeled material with psychics and mediums, beings from the other side. And different kinds of cults, like these two books here, The Cause of World Unrest, and the Pawns in the Game, William Carr, focusing on the Bolshevik, Jewish, Zionist, Illuminati, secret societies, and all these cults into Luciferianism. I'm just saying. And these people control our world today. Could this all have been some kind of plan from the invisible reality to invade and control this reality? Is that speculating too far out there for you? I'm just looking at the timing, because even Nikola Tesla said, "I'm not the genius you think I am." He said that on stage. He said, "I get visions and I hear voices and I have dreams." And now they have technologies, they can do that to anyone. So are there some nefarious, sinister outside forces bringing about these technological advances to enslave humanity? Maybe they don't even care about humanity. They just want Earth and its resources. And obviously there are some very sinister characters out there with the stuff that they're into that seems demonic, satanic, devilish, evil. Borderling, it's not borderling, it is insane. Spirit cooking, child and human sacrifice, sexual orgies, promoting decadency in America and the world. They say at the end times, up will be down, down will be up, and 2 plus 2 will equal 5. Why? Because they tell you it equals 5. You disagree? You want to resist? You could become an anti-government belligerent. You try to resist, you could become an insurgent. Hunger Games, the movie. And again, I'm saying, if this stuff in this book is real, who's in control of our planet? What are they doing? Bringing us the white supremacist or white lives matter demonstrations while they have the Antifada liberal progressives in the wings, and apparently crowdsondemand.com, some company out of LA, was advertising for people to be involved in these protests. Advertising, so they were planning this whole thing from the White Lives Matter, KKK, white supremacists on the right, to the Antifada, anti-fascists on the left, There's evidence that's coming out. It's all planned. Are they playing games with us? And these are the people who have control the technologies and are aware of the truth about the UFO and alien information out there. The many books that you see that I have, and the many books I've gone over, and the many books I'm going to go over, the propaganda, threats about pole shifting, Planet X coming, Zachariah Stitchin. What the heck is the truth? All right. Tesla and a number of European scientists had been pioneers in the conversion of circumscribed small area anti-gravitational fields out of electromagnetic fields. Strangely enough, it's been one of the things that I've been interested in since I was a child. Alternate energy and anti-gravity. I did get an electronic technology degree, and I worked at a major aerospace company for 10 years. I got laid off at Christmas time with 1,000 other people in 1989, and after working there for 10 years, worked on projects, electronic equipment associated with the space shuttle, F-18 jet, B-1B bomber, satellites in space, mostly research and development. And then after that, I got laid off and I went into business for myself, 1990. And this is 2017, so 27 years ago, I've been working for myself. And it's been a long time. But in 2005, I decided to investigate what the heck is going on, and spent 13 years reading books, making videos, reading magazines, watching videos, reading press releases, paying attention to world events, archaeology, preparations for martial law, New World Order, 911, and so much more. Trying to figure out something so simple. What the heck is going on? All right, so Tesla and a number of other European scientists had been pioneers in the conversion of circumscribed small area anti-gravity fields out of electronic or electromagnetic fields. However, the effort to develop true anti-gravity aircraft never came to fruition among conventional aircraft manufacturers. But the theory of electromagnetic anti-gravitation propulsion was not unknown, even if it was not well understood. So there were a lot of people working on this, and apparently the Hitler regime, again, was financed by the Illuminati bankster types. He didn't get where he was on his own. People supplied the money. Even apparently the Bush family was involved in supplying different resources, the banking system, oil, metal. Where else would Hitler get all that money? There's books on all these topics, and I'll be going over them. So we can see that the secret societies, the Illuminati, the Jewish utopians, the Jewish Zionists, are all behind the scenes involved with the Luciferian Satanists and some kind of interdimensional beings, reptilians, gray aliens, whatever. That's a lot to say. But what if the flying craft already carried enough electric potential and storage capacity to retain its power, just like a very advanced flying battery? Then it might have all the power it needed to propagate and vector a wave directionally by shifting its magnetic poles. If the magnetic field theory experiments carried out by engineers and electrical energy pioneers Paul Byfield and Townsend Brown, I've read about Townsend Brown, and his electromagnetic flying saucers, in the 1920s, at the California Institute of Advanced Studies were accurately reported in the U.S. military as well as scientific record keepers at the Hoover Young Bureau of Investigation, FBI, kept very close tabs on what these engineers were doing. So apparently there was a lot of internal fighting going on between the CIA, FBI, Navy, Army, banksters, Illuminati. Then the technological theory for anti-gravity flight existed before World War II. So it just makes you wonder where they got this technology, considering another crazy theory, you think? But since 1840 to 1940, actually all during the 1800s, they had the European Psychic Research Society. I've got books on that. I've done videos on that. We'll be researching that again. And then they had the American Research Society communicating with beings from the other side. So it makes you wonder if they were perfecting to communicate with the invisible reality, another dimension. And then they have CERN, the collider, and then they wanted to put up the archway of Baal, little archway. What is an archway? It's a door. Why would they put up a simple little door with symbols on it, like incantations, like magic? To open up some kind of portal? If you walked up to it and you said some words, could it open up a plasma portal to another dimension? So did this technological information come from another dimension? According to Nikola Tesla, yes, it did. Go look up all the channelers on YouTube that are popular. Abraham, Esther Hicks, and so many others. Even Cryon with Lee Carroll was speaking before the United Nations. So who and what is behind these secret societies, which apparently put all our politicians and leaders and banksters in the positions they are with untold wealth and control? And if anybody gets in the way, like President John Kennedy, who said that in his famous speech, secret societies are repugnant to the American way of life, and I intend to expose it, and then he's assassinated. And how many other people have been assassinated, presidents of different countries, I can name quite a few, that were getting in the way of the New World Order and the bankers and elitist control of their countries. I've been making videos on these topics. Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Jim Marrs material. Michael Rupert, Crossing the Rubicon. If you've been watching my videos, go watch them. I've got 350 videos, some of them 2 hours, over 500 hours, 4 years worth of work. Something is very real going on, and I don't think it's going to be good for we the people. Bringing us these white supremacists or white lives matter fighting the black lives matter, threats about Russia controlling the elections, threats about China controlling the oceans, threats about the Arabs blamed for 9/11. Do I really have to keep on going into this? Somebody's planning these things. They have it out for we humans. All right, back to this book. In fact, prototypes for vertical takeoff and landing disc-shaped aircraft had been on the drawing board at the California Institute since before the war. It was just that in the United States nobody paid much attention. The Germans did develop and had flown flying disc, or so the intelligence reports read, even though they had no impact on the outcome of the war other than stimulating a race between the United States and the USSR to gather as much of the German technology as possible. So then a lot of us are aware, then they brought us the Cold War. between the United States and the world and Russia, with the fighting each other, threatening nuclear holocaust or disaster. So they would have we the people believe. And they were using that to control the resources and the money, and these black operations were full underway while they were bringing us the hippie movement, heroin, LSD, cocaine, and over in Europe, festivals, drugging Americans, trying to change our society, destroy religious thinking. Very sinister plan, you think? Thus, even though engineers had attempted to build vertical takeoff and flying wing aircraft before and had succeeded, the Roswell spacecraft, because it was so truly functional and outflew anything we had, as well as traveled in space, represented a practical technological challenge to the scientists visiting the Air Material Command. We know what the aliens did, we just couldn't duplicate it. My report for the Army Research and Development were an analysis of the types of technology that we had to develop to either challenge this spacecraft militarily with a credible defense or build one ourselves. So that's what they would have us believe. But look at this. I'm not trying to be a skeptic or a promoter of whether that material I just read is the truth, the Roswell crash, the Roswell beings, but I do know this. There was a lot of books, and I've shown you some books on my bookcase, some of the US UFO books I have. I've got some others that are not in that picture. So I thought we'd just look at them for a second. And you could tell there's a lot of marketing out there. The Gods of Eden. The chilling truth about extraterrestrial infiltration and the conspiracy to keep humankind in chains. Oh my. When was this published? Avon Books. Oh, let's see here. The date is 1989. Aliens from Space. A real story of unidentified flying objects. From secret Washington archives, eyewitness testimonies, and official scientific findings. Donald Kehoe. The date on this one, 1973. Got a little stack here. Invisible Residence. Ivan Sanderson. Is there intelligent life beneath the waters of the earth? I think I made a video on this book already. That was of Invisible Horizons, series number 79. This is Invisible Residence. I think I've been looking for this book to make a video on. Did I not? 1970. Gets crazier. Flying saucers on the attack. Analyzing hundreds of reports of UFOs. The author asks, are they friendly? Visitors from outer space or invaders planning conquest? Harold Watkins. It's hard to get some of these books. I've been collecting them for many years. What year was this published? 1954. Is something up there? Dale White. Looks like the Empire State Building. Looks like a UFO. When was this published? 1969. Okay, flying saucers, the startling evidence of the invasion from outer space. Original title, The Great Flying Saucer Hoax. That's what it says here. An exposure of the establishment's flying saucer cover-up. Coral Lorenza, co-founder of the world-renowned Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization. If you can find these books on used book sites, try to buy them. When was this one published? 1962. All right, another one here. Astonishing new revelations of strange and frequently frightening encounters. Situation Red. The UFO Siege. Leonard Stringfield. Forward by Major Donald Keyhoe. All these little paperbacks. And the date on this one, 1977. So you think a lot was going on back then? And then the spaceships of Ezekiel, that would be in the Bible. Are the Vandanican theories really true? Was Earth once visited by beings from another planet? A major NASA engineer reveals some astonishing facts. J.F. Bloomrich. When was this published? Well, looks like he signed it inside. 1974. And another one. Flying Saucers and the Three Men. A UFO investigator's terrifying experience with visitors from outer space. Albert Bendor, Gary Barker. When was this published? There's a point to this conversation. 1968. So remember back then they were bringing us the hippie movement with CIA involvement, secret societies, people behind the scenes, bringing us cocaine, heroin, LSD, drugs to Americans. Writing books also about depopulating the planet and all kinds of other activities. Meanwhile, we get all this stuff. You think there's a connection? While they're trying to destroy Christianity and religion and take over the Palestinians' land. If you think about World War I, World War II, what did it do? It took control of governments, persuaded people, bribing them to go along with taking the Arabs' land away so that the Zionist, Bolshevik, Illuminati, Kabbalistic Jewish people could bring about some prophesized country, now called Israel. And also the other entity that was in the way of that was the Ottoman Empire out of Greece, controlling all of the Middle East. With the two world wars, they destroyed the Ottoman Empire, which had sided up with Germany. So all of the walls that were preventing these entities from forming the State of Israel, where all the historic sites are, had been destroyed, and the final cataclysmic event, of course, was 9/11 to convince all the people that the Arabs were all evil, and how many countries have been overthrown and millions of people slaughtered, and the rest of them sent to Europe and the United States in the middle of the night, or marching right up the highways while they are screaming at the people that they're going to come take over. Somebody's planning all this stuff. And I'm showing you these books here because I think somebody planted all the publishing of these books for public consumption. Flying saucers Is there a cosmic battle plan aimed at Earth? Here is the astonishing evidence of the reality and the strategy of the UFOs in our skies. When was this published? Just makes you wonder. This is part of the mind control plan. We're taking over the world, changing it, bringing us a new age and a new world order. 1955. So much happened after World War II. Like I said, the hippie age, drugs, cocaine, heroin, LSD, CIA and other forces like that, Illuminati, banksters, money laundering involved. So much out there that you can confirm this. I didn't make this stuff up. Jim Marrs, who just recently died, I just acquired 2 more of his books that I ordered in the last few days. All this stuff is in there, and many other books. And a lot of people are aware of this stuff. UFOs, past, present, and future. Robert Eminger, including 16 pages of photographs. The real facts behind thousands of mysterious sightings. So in reading The Day After Roswell, we know the government were creating, manufacturing anti-gravity controlled saucer type craft before World War II. This was 1974. So I'm just using my mind and say, is it plausible that all this is a deception? Flying saucers, serious business. Overwhelming new evidence that they are real. This book that smashes through the barrier of official silence with the exclusive story. Frank Edwards. When was this published? Okay, 1952. I don't know, he died in 1965. Printing history, 1966. Again, a lot happened after World War II during the hippie movement with drugs and all this other craziness in our society. Alright, another book I had here. I just grabbed one of my stacks. And of course you've already seen my picture that I did not show you. These books. And of course all the other UFO books that I've made videos on. There are many of them in this bookcase. Maybe a dozen out of the 149 in the last 4 years. You can go watch them. And there were the other books. The complete report commissioned by the U.S. Air Force, the scientific study, Unidentified Flying Objects by Edward Condon, the famous Condon report. Apparently he was trying to discredit. Yes, sometimes when you buy these books, you get pictures of people inside, little newspaper clippings. And apparently that's Condon, and he died in age of 72. World's most respected physicist died Monday at Boulder Community Hospital of complications from heart disease. Least we forget the takeover of the medical establishment in 1910, 1920s in the USA by Illuminati member Rockefeller and other associates, forcing fluoride in the water all over the country. Condon report. When was this done? Okay, looks like it was published in 1969. Trying to discredit flying saucers and all that. And of course we got things going on right now, like next month, September 23rd, they say that Nibiru is going to pass. Some YouTube videos. And the pole shift will happen and the whole crust will slide over the earth and Alaska is going to move down towards the equator, according to Nancy Leader, who's communicating with the Vedas or the Palladians and the other material I've been going over with channeled information. So I'm trying to do a thorough study of this and keeping my mind open. Could all these books that look so colorful, were they sold to the public and marketed for public consumption, trying to make people believe it's true? And if these beings and craft are real, who are they? And who controls our world right now? And what kind of plans do they have for the rest of us? Just saying, it doesn't look too good. I do not think ignorance will be bliss. Can you see where I'm coming from? 13 years researching, 4 years making videos, 149 in the series, almost 200 books. Lots of books on UFOs, aliens. I've got 5 times this many books on psychic research, 3 or 4 times this many books on conspiracy theory, exposure, research authors. Like 1,000 books. Assuming you could get them all for $10 each. That's a lot of money spent on books in 13 years. I wanted to have the evidence in my hands when I made these videos and came up with my theory of what's going on. Somebody would say, "Where did you get that? I don't believe that." That's why I do book reviews. My philosophy is this stuff true? Did they find a spaceship? Was there an alien body? If they did, they're not telling us, and if they plan on some Project Bluebeam, some fake alien invasion, the evidence is clear they're planning on a new age and a new world order, which is decadency as much as it could be. It's pretty insane. Spirit cooking, pedophilia, child abductions, child sacrifice, it's just off the chart. Wars, 911, bombing the smithereens out of people in the Middle East. And it seems like they have plans for the rest of us. So back to the book. What to believe? What if all this UFO stuff is false? That's equally disturbing. True or false, it's disturbing. Okay, in my notes to General Trudeau, I reviewed for him all the technological implications that I believed were relevant in any discussion about what could be harvested from the Roswell craft. So like I said, can we believe Col Philip Corso, retired, the author of this book? If it's a scam or whatever, and all these other UFO alien books, if it's all a deception, quite the deception. I also wrote up what I understood about the magnetic field technology and how conventional designers and engineers had drafted prototypes for these anti-gravs earlier in the century. All of this pointed in one direction. I suggested that we now had a craft and could farm out to industry the components that comprised this electromagnetic anti-gravity drive and brave wave directed navigational controls. So if they have all this secret technology, stuff they got from these crash craft, and they're giving it to the international corporations, who we now see are part of the Illuminati controlled mechanism to control the world and make government officials less relevant. So you're putting the fox in charge of the henhouse. We had to dole them out piecemeal once we broke them down into developable units. each of which could have its own engineering track. For that we'd need the advice of the scientists who would eventually comprise our brain trust. Individuals we could rely on and whom we could talk to about the Roswell debris. Let's hope they didn't give it to RAND Corporation or the Smithsonian or so many other organizations who are part of the world domination plan. Part of the problem. Part of the threat to humanity. These were scientists who routinely worked with our prime defense contractors and could tell us whom to approach. I'm misspeaking today. In their R&D divisions for secure and private consultations. So again, what do they know that we the people don't know? And how many men and women have I heard on YouTube videos and read in books, etc., that the government is 100 years ahead of in technology than what they share with the rest of us? I was hoping that the evaluation of the kinds of things we were able to learn from the aliens and his craft that I was preparing for General Trudeau would lead me toward the solution of some of the physiological problems we knew our astronauts would encounter in spaceflight. In the early 1960s, astronauts from both the United States and the USSR had made their first orbital flights and had experienced more than a few negative physical symptoms from the weightless environment during the mission. We were worried about loss of physical strength, reduced muscle capability in the heart and diaphragm, reduction of lung capacity, and a loss of tensile strength in the bones. So then they tell us they sent numerous craft to the moon and back, all without any incidents. Do you believe it? I don't believe it. So if the moon landings, and all that was a hoax, what do you think about this stuff? Yet scattered across the desert floor outside of Roswell were creatures who seemed completely adapted to spaceflight. Just to be able to examine these entities was an enormous opportunity. But I knew we had the ability to harvest what we could observe about aliens. So again, alongside the speculations I had made about the aliens and their craft, I listed what I thought were the major possibilities of developing product to enable us to travel in space for extended periods of time. Renewable oxygen and food supplies were obvious directions to take. And by the 1960s, NASA engineers were already designing ways to recharge the atmosphere inside a capsule and provide for food storage. It was Army R&D and our plan for developing an irradiation process for food that even today provides the basis for non-refrigerated food supplies on board spacecraft. Merely getting humans into Earth orbit or even launching them into lunar orbit and bringing them back safely were straightforward engineering principles. The physiology of the aliens provided an opportune clue. Besides the development of the super tenacity fibers that would protect the astronauts and the skin of the spacecraft, and the development of the food preservation process that would neutralize all the bacteria that cause spoilage, we needed to examine the ways we trained our astronauts physically so that they would be more adaptable to periods of weightlessness and special disorientation. Since there were no food preparation facilities on board the alien spacecraft, we didn't know how they stored or processed food, or even what they ate, if anything at all. So maybe they weren't human. If we were going to travel in space, it was clear from what the Army found at Roswell that at least one culture had developed the technology to do so. Then R&D had to find a way to feed our pilots in space. I'm skipping stuff here. Just want to wrap up this video, give you an idea what's in this book, and have the conversation about this. The problem of long-term space travel still hasn't been solved, in part because we continue to rely upon conventional means of propulsion that subject our astronauts to great periods of physical stress, especially during takeoff. I'm skipping a couple paragraphs here. Beyond the issues concerning the training potential of astronauts for conventionally powered spaceflight, the examination of the alien bodies and the ship's possible propulsion system raised other intriguing questions. What if, in addition to having been bioengineered for space travel, the aliens weren't subjected to the kinds of forces human pilots would routinely face? If the aliens utilized a wave propagation technology as an anti-gravity drive and navigation system, then they traveled inside some form of adjustable electromagnetic wave. I suggested to General Trudeau that what we should study the potential physiological effects on humans' long-term exposure to the kinds of energy spillage generated by the propagation of an electromagnetic field. So when was this book written? 1997. So they were worried about the reactions to the electrical radiations. Biologists needed to determine how feasible such a form of space travel would be based upon whether energy radiation would disrupt the cellular activity of the human body. And again, I get back to the 5G network. You think there's something potentially dangerous? You think it's a huge weapon? Can you imagine if it is a weapon and they're installing it today, and someday they're going to turn it on? They won't need biological weapons. They won't need nuclear weapons. They could just fry we the people any place on the planet. Who can we trust? Perhaps the external one-piece skins worn by the aliens afforded them protection against the effects of being enclosed in a portable electromagnetic field. So it looks like the whole planet's going to be engulfed in 5G. So maybe we should start making our clothes out of aluminum foil. I'm being facetious, I understand. But we know they want a new age and a new world order. Georgia USA Guidestones indicate they want to depopulate the planet. I've got several books. One I'll be making a video on next. But they were talking about depopulating the planet in the 1960s and 70s. I've got a couple books. And going further back than that, late 1800s, early 1900s, they were obsessed with world overpopulation. So they say. Although Army R&D never conducted these studies because the medical issues surrounding the space travel were subsumed by the NASA under contracts with the military, indirect medical research was conducted years later. Studies surrounding the physiological effects of persons living near high-voltage power transmission lines and persons using extended antenna handheld cellular telephones both proved inconclusive. So in this book on page 114, studies surrounding those technologies proved inconclusive. So they did not prove they were harmless. I believe that a definite piece of research on the effects of low energy, or ELM, wave exposure still needs to be done, because ultimately, even more than atomic energy or ion drives, magnetic field generation will be the system that will propel our near planetary voyages from 2050, the year 2050, through the early 22nd century. So again, bathing the whole planet in 5G and Gwen towers, hidden secret towers, cell phone towers, satellites, wireless, and all kinds of other transmitted signals. Are we going to be destroying ourselves? Or I should put it more frankly, are the people building these systems planning on destroying us? I know, I'm just looking under the different sides of this conversation. Beyond that, for humans to reach destinations beyond the solar system, technology will require a radically different form of propulsion that will enable them to reach velocities at or beyond the speed of light. Thus did my second report cover the opportunities for research presented to us by the autopsies of the aliens and from the crash of their vehicle. To my mind, it was nothing less than a confirmation that the research into electromagnetics in the 1920s and the highly experimental saucer and crescent-shaped development of aircraft by the Allies and the Axis powers would have led to an entirely new generation of airships. I know that my reports were held by the higher-ups in the military. I know that my reports were read by the higher-ups in the military because top-secret research has continued right through to the present on a whole range of designs and propulsion systems, from these stealth aircraft and bombers to prototypes for a very high altitude suborbitable interceptor aircraft developed by Nellis and Edwards, now on the drawing board, which can hover in place and fly at speeds over 7,000 miles per hour. Oh my. Once I finished my report on the opportunities we could possibly derive from the alien bodies and the craft, I turned my attention to compiling a short list of immediate opportunities. Oops, there went my cell phone. Alright, I turned my attention to compiling a short list of immediate opportunities I believed achievable by the Army's Research and Development Foreign Technology Division from a reverse engineering of items retrieved from the crash. These were specific things, not as theoretical as questions about the physiology of the aliens or the description of its craft. But while some might call them purely mundane, each of these artifacts, as a direct result of the Army's research and development intervention, helped spawn an entire technological industry from which came new products and military weapons. So that ought to make us friends with people all over the world. Not. Having more advanced technological weapons would probably intimidate Russia or China or anybody. What's going on is the question. Among the Roswell artifacts and the questions and issues that arose from the Roswell crash, on my preliminary list that needed resolution for development scheduling or simple inquiries to our military scientific community were, and there's a list here, image intensifiers, which ultimately became night vision. Apparently they got some kind of camera system They can look right into your house, see right through the wall. If they have snipers out there or they're looking for you. Fiber optics, super tenacity fibers, lasers. They have laser weapons. Molecular alignment metallurgical alloys, so special kinds of metals. Integrated circuits and micro miniaturized logic boards. They've done that. HAARP, High Altitude Research Project. HAARP, H-A-A-R-P. Go look it up. Beaming microwaves, bouncing them off the ionosphere, controlling the weather, controlling the jet stream, creating electromagnetic energies over a city, frying the people. They don't even know it. It's a weapon. Lovely what they learned and obtained from these alien craft, if this is real. Project Horizon moon base, portable atomic generators, ion propulsion drive, irradiated food, third brain guidance system, the alien headbands, particle beams, Star Wars, we've heard of that, anti-missile energy weapons. I think Judy Woods seems to indicate that that's how they took down the towers. They had some kind of directed energy beam from space. Electromagnetic propulsion systems, depleted uranium projectiles. Who in their right mind, and they did do this, so we got people in our government and the military who cannot be in their right mind, but they were using depleted uranium in rocket shells in Iraq. Can you even imagine firing a rocket shell full of uranium depleted? I mean, this is stuff that will stay on the ground and kill people for a long time. All right, for each of the items on my list, General Trudeau went into his human resources file and found the names of scientists working on government defense projects or in allied research projects at universities where I could turn for advice and some consultation. I wasn't surprised to see Werner Braun, the German scientist, turn up under every rocket propulsion issue. Von Braun had gone on record in 1959 by announcing that the U.S. military had acquired new technology as a result of top secret research in unidentified flying objects. Nor was I surprised to see John Van Neumann's name next to the mention of strange-looking silver-imprinted silicon wafers that I thought looked like elliptical-shaped crackers. And you wonder where we got these flat-screen TVs, computers, and all that. If these are what I think they might be, General Trudeau said, printed circuitry, there's only one person we can talk to. Dr. Robert Sarbarker was an especially important contact person on our list of scientists because he worked on the Research and Development Board during the Eisenhower administration. So if you know anything about that, an association with Prescott Bush, and apparently with the banksters Illuminati controlling our world, and planning for a new age and a new world order, population reduction, it just raises some interesting questions. Is this stuff true? Is Col Philip Corso telling the truth? And that's concerning, considering what we know about the world today, 2017, who's in control, what the Prime Minister of Israel said, that no longer are we a world, a planet of nations. We are now under the global authority of international bankers. And we all either have to go along or we will be poor or irrelevant. I think I'll play that clip and end this video. Thank you for watching my video. Rick Marico reporting.
There are significant political changes on the map from day to day. First it was Tunisia, then Egypt, Libya, now Syria. What do all those changes mean for the Middle East? And all that's happening, is it positive for Israel?
Yes. I mean, there may be a transitional period that will create some difficulties, but in the long run, yes, look. It's not that those countries are changing. All countries are changing because the world has changed. And nobody has a choice, either to go with the modern age or to lag behind and really become poor and irrelevant. What's happening is, governments are no longer controlling their own economy. Instead of a national economy, you have a global economy. Now, if you want to enter, you have to follow the new rules of economy.
Exactly.